want to talk college football recruiting here. LSU obviously had their big camp, their elite camp over the weekend, and talked to Billy Embody last week about it, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more in the coming days. But I think there are a lot of people very concerned that LSU sits here right now with 5 commitments. And you look at the top 10 in the state, and you don't think you're going to get Arch Manning, and Eli Holstein's going elsewhere, and you feel like, probably not going to get Jaden Ausberry, and then Tackett Curtis, that doesn't sound good either. You're like, oh my God, what is the problem here? And I'm not here to tell you that LSU's in great shape for recruiting, or that everything's going to be fine, or that Brian Kelly's going to do an awesome job. I don't know any of that. I have my thoughts that LSU is going to recruit very, very well under Brian Kelly. But right now at 5 commitments, people are kind of I'm looking at the calendar we need to do a little bit better than this. And so I started to dive into national recruiting stuff, which I don't do a lot of until signing day, quite honestly, because who knows what's going to happen. But here's the deal nationally. I mean, the number 2 class in the country is Texas Tech. Cincinnati's got the 5th-ranked class. Northwestern has the 6th-ranked class. And if you look around at the number of commitments in each class, all of a sudden LSU's numbers don't look as bad with only 5, because there are lots of teams that don't have very many. USC's got 9. They're supposed to recruit at a pretty high level. Texas has 7. Figure they recruit at a pretty high level. Oklahoma's got 8. Michigan's got 7. Miami's got 7. Florida State's got 8. Of course, LSU's got 5. A&M's got 5. Moneybags himself over there. Florida's got 6. Bama has 4. Ole Miss has 5. Why? Why is it so much slower than it used to be? I have my thoughts. Do you have any sort of, anything behind that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of things have happened extremely quickly, especially for the landscape of college football. And I think for one, leveling out the scholarships where you don't have to have 25 high school guys. Now there's not an emphasis on, hey, we got to get all these kids signed. Now you can kind of balance it out. Now there's, more than, 5 official visits. So now you can, take a lot more official visits. And so there's not that rush. I think there's a lot of things that's kind of going on with this whole thing. And now with this, legal bidding war, I guess that should be said, with NIL, now there's no rush to, go to this particular school, and you can kind of see what's all out there. You're the freest free agent you'll ever be when you're, that last year in high school. So I think guys are kind of, taking their time and kind of seeing what's out there before they kind of jump and commit to one school.
My thoughts are generally similar to that. It's every situation is unique, and so you can't paint with a total broad brush here. There are a lot of things that have changed in the world of recruiting, whether it's name, image, and likeness, like you mentioned. And why would I commit somewhere while when I'm uncommitted, they've got to jack up the price for me? That's one thought. Now, this is not the first time high school recruits have gotten some cash to go play somewhere. So it's not a total change, but a little bit of a change. You can move around. As you mentioned, people are going to the transfer portal to fill their roster. So are they offering less high school kids? Because we don't have to load them all up. I can go get 14 high school kids and go get 12 portal guys if I want to. That's legal, and you're able to do that. Is it a situation where there's so much that can be said for it. It's just the fact of the matter is that it has slowed down. There's just none of these teams are way out in front of this deal. The reason Texas Tech's the 2nd-ranked class in the country is because they have 20 commitments. The reason Northwestern is the 6th-ranked class in the country because they have 18 commitments. Now, 16 of them are 3 stars. That's the way they're going to roll up there. But I wonder if one of these things is becoming more prevalent than others. Are schools actively slowing down their offer process, or are players actively slowing down their commitment process because they want to get to the NIL bidding war and explore those opportunities? My gut tells me it's probably some of both, but it's happening because I'm looking at it.
Yeah. You talk to, we listened to Coach Polian last week, and it's like a two-edged sword, especially with the high school kids, because, you wait too long now, and we know how the coaching trees change, and different coaches, different spots. Now, a lot of these kids are not going to have, scholarships when, once National Signing Day comes around. It's already at 500 now of kids that didn't sign last year based on the year before. So what is that number going to get to? You're already seeing the numbers are really down across the commits across the country. So I mean, this NIL thing, I don't think anyone can kind of predict how it goes. I think we're kind of seeing it as it plays out in front of us. But it's really crazy to see. Five at this time will really make you really be panicked. But when you kind of look around, it's really not that as bad as you may have thought it was.
How many high school kids do you think LSU will sign most years? Just spitballing.
I think I say 20 to 22.
And that's what Billy said like 22, he thinks. And it makes sense. You would rather build your roster with high school players that come in that you can develop for 3 or 4 years, that understand the program, that have been around. It's not new. They're raised in the same culture, and that is the preference. But the reality is that you've got to plug some holes with the transfer portal. Jay Johnson talked about this on Friday, saying, like, I really like and would rather build it with high school kids and have them in the program for 3 years so that they understand and we can develop them the way that we want to develop them. But we do now have an avenue here, and really it's just going to be indicative of what happens in the Major League Draft. Whatever happens in the draft, that's now I got to go and fill the gaps. And I guess by the same token with football, it's what happens in the transfer portal, how many guys leave, how many do I need to backfill with them. But I think there are probably going to be some, because LSU gets safer bets on high school players. If you sign a bunch of 4 and 5 stars, they're more likely to become really good college players. If you sign a bunch of 3 stars and 2 stars, like if you're Northwestern, there's a higher probability that those guys can't play at this level. There are plenty of great 2 stars and plenty of awful 5 stars. Like, we all know that. We don't have to get into that back and forth. But I think for LSU, you can buy enough lottery tickets that it's going to work out. Maybe Purdue and Cal are going to sign less high school kids and just go pluck the transfer portal kids that they can from a lower level because it's safer. But I think LSU is still going to be very, very heavily involved in the high school market. That's just, maybe that's wrong, but it's just the way that I see it.
No, I think too, especially when you name all the other schools that are in that single-digit ballpark of commits right now, is that LSU happens to be the only one that's a real Power 5 school in its own state, and so you have that under your belt. So you would want to say that you can hold your state down, especially get the top end, high-end recruits, which we don't have right now. You kind of look at that top 10. A lot of guys not committed to LSU. So if you can find a way to just get half of those guys, it puts you in a really, really great spot going to each, calendar year recruiting. So this year will be another huge year for this recruiting staff if they can put together, a year where they're getting, 5 out of those guys out of that top 10 in your state. It makes high school recruiting very, very important.
When I bring up a topic and bring up my argument, I always try to look at the other side. And that, when I'm saying that LSU should rely more heavily on high school players than most, I can also hear the other side of the argument because, but you can also cherry pick the best transfer portal guys that want to come play at a place like LSU. And in this class, it was more Louisiana guys, but, look what Alabama's doing. They went and got a stud wide receiver from Georgia, number 1 corner in the country from LSU. Got Georgia Tech's former 5-star running back. Like that, they went and got, I think, Vanderbilt or Kentucky's best offensive lineman. It's that side of it also exists, but I think big picture, I think LSU will lean more heavily on high school kids than transfer portal, is what I think.
Yeah. I mean, you got the backyard. I think that's why Coach Kelly came and took this job. You don't really have to go far. You don't have to, get on the private jet to go recruit. You can get in the car and go down the street and recruit. And I think if LSU can use that to his advantage and really, use some of these top men, nationally ranked players that are right in your backyard, it's definitely going to keep you in that high school range and, continue to go after some of the high school recruits.
All right, we spent this entire segment me kind of saying everybody else is struggling too. Don't panic about LSU's recruiting. Are you concerned? They only have 5 commitments to this point, and it looks like of the top 10 in Louisiana, there are 4, 5, 6 of them that you're not going to get.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think there's so many different reasons, like we just said before. With a lot of these guys are going to commit to places, and they're not going to be so happy with what happens with the transfer portal being around. You really can't take it too really serious, really what happens in that first year. And I think right now, so much time between now and the first signing day, and then obviously you got a whole nother national signing day. Let's see kind of how we fare then, and then I'll see if I need to panic yet or not.
It's the hardest thing to do in recruiting is to be patient and evaluate. We just want it. We want immediate gratification. How many stars? What's the ranking like? Where does it compare to Alabama? What's A&M doing? There's so much knee-jerk reaction and competitiveness and what feels like objective fact in recruiting when it's not objective fact. It's very much a subjective process in terms of the player ratings and all that kind of stuff. Look, Brian Kelly put together really good classes in Notre Dame. He did so by going all over the country and making his pitch. And I think he's going to put together good classes in Baton Rouge. He's got a staff that has some really good recruiters on it. He's got a staff that's got some local ties. Until I'm proven wrong, I'm going to believe that Brian Kelly is going to assemble a really strong roster. I'm a little bit concerned's not the right word. Like, I'm aware that they only have 5 commitments for this class. How's that? Like, I'm not totally oblivious to that fact, but I'm not ready to hammer a panic button anytime soon. They've still got some time. I was hoping some more news would come out of camp, just 1 commitment for next year's class. Hoping for some more in the coming weeks as they get some guys on campus. As we talked about last week, like, this is the first crop that's really had the ability their last year to do this thing right and to go to camps and to make official visits and to see games with full stadiums, as opposed to that 2-year gap we had where the world stopped and it was a dead period the whole time, and you're making basically high school kids make their next decision on Zoom calls and text messages. Like, that's not the case anymore. So I'm aware that things are not perfect on the recruiting front, but I do trust that things will get straightened out and that they will sign a very, very good class.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. See you next time.